and today we got to play Lizard Wizard. And yes, this was a Gen Con.
No, this was at Gen Con. We couldn't play it at Gen Con, or couldn't get it at Gen Con. This was the one that I was bitter about because they sold the retail version well in advance, probably about 3 months before this finally came to our doorstep.
Because you guys did the Kickstarter as a response to Raccoon Tycoon because you liked it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Well, we like several of their games, but Forbidden Games, we've got like 3 or 4 of their games, and we liked a lot of them.
Yeah. All right. So tell us more about Lizard Wizard.
So this is a brand new game. Came out this year, 2021. Board Game Geek rating 7.4. The overall rating is pretty high. It's 5,745. Designer is Glenn Drover, which I think he's designed all the Forbidden Games, hasn't he?
I'm not sure.
But the art's by Jacob E. O'Connor and Annie Stegg, published by Forbidden Games. MSRP $49.99, but Hard House had it for $35.99.
But that's for the standard edition.
That's the only version that was available.
Yeah.
I didn't see any other versions.
So let's talk about quality of pieces for the Kickstarter. Holy moly, yes please! Like the quality for this was absolutely fantastic. You have these useless statues for your
but they look
tiles.
It's for bragging rights. And you have these,
of course, I still want them.
It does a very good job displaying that you're doing better than everybody else.
Yes, you can taunt your other opponents by just putting your jade thrones, showing your achievements.
Huge first player token.
Which is super pretty. Well, then I love the
resource tokens.
Resource tokens. They're screen printed, I guess.
No, yes.
Are they screen printed or are they sticker?
No, they're screen printed.
They're screen printed. So super nice on that. Really happy with these. They're in the shape of the appropriate thing.
I mean, they could be heat transferred sticker. It may be heat transferred stickers.
Yeah, heat transferred.
I didn't have a sticker though.
Right, but they look like stickered on there.
Well, they're good, whatever it is. I love them.
Card quality is really nice. It's got a pretty good stock, but it's all textured linen finish.
Yep, you've got your player screens. You have an organizer for the pieces, which is really nice. You have these inlaid boards.
That's
for
like the biggest disappointment.
Market track, but I don't understand the shape.
If all your resources were cylinders or like circular, it'd have been fine.
Yeah,
but they're not. They're more supposed to be realistically shaped, and it doesn't fit the board.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
I appreciate the effort, but it just didn't quite get there.
The bigger issue on it, which this is all cosmetic, is at the very bottom they didn't cut it right, so it doesn't line up with the rest of the board the way it's supposed to. It's got part of the text from the text below. You know, if it had just been printed slightly lower on the board, then it would have been fine. But the way it's lined up, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't fit right.
You know, it's kind of So,
but this is nitpicky stuff because overall,
it's a very nice, high quality.
I'm gonna give this a 9 on quality, guys. It's beautiful and I love it and I'm happy with it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I probably would have given it a 10 if it not for the minor things. And the other thing is the screens. I do not like these screens. They're fairly flimsy. They are linen finished. This really didn't need to be, but it is. But they are pretty thin.
Yeah.
But they stayed up.
They did.
There are several
players. Most of the time they stood up. They felt,
my boobs did get in the way a couple of times. I can't help that.
Mine did too.
Mine did not, but the air from me reaching across to do my actions knocked them over. Now we didn't play with the play mats because I forgot to get them out. But yeah, we didn't really need them. But yeah, and I'm not sure we would have fit them on this table. Actually.
I think we ran out a bit of a space. So what would you score?
I think a 9's about right as far as given all the good things about this.
Yeah, I mean, I might be at an 8.5. I think that to go to the level they did with like the resource tokens, really nice insert tray for those the resource tokens. They could have done something better for the tiles. I mean, this is just cardboard. I mean, they could have made it out of something a little bit nicer. It's like they went all the way except for a couple of things.
Yeah.
And I agree with these, and I wouldn't even score it too hard on here, except for me, and I think it's because I'm just getting older and my eyes aren't just as great as they used to be. It was hard for me to read this. I don't know if it's because of the size of the font or it's not enough of a contrast with the writing versus the color of the back, but it was just tough for me to read this.
I just think you're old.
I'm sure that's
pretty
part
much.
of it. But it's still my opinion. So based off of whatever reason, I couldn't read it well. So
Even your opinion is old.
it is 8.5 is what it's for.
Okay, cool. So still pretty awesome game as far as quality of pieces
Very
go.
impressive.
Remember, this is the Kickstarter version. I don't know what this will look like in the retail version, so
Probably a lot more cardboard.
probably a lot more cardboard.
Yeah, I mean, there were cardboard to replace all these tokens. We just didn't need them. And all the coin. So I would say that's one thing. I don't think
we didn't mention the coins,
Yeah, the
guys.
coins.
The coins are really
Well,
nice.
the coins are good and bad. They're really nice looking,
But
but
they're harder
try
than heck to
to- yeah,
tell what
try
the
to read the
denomination
numbers.
is.
yeah.
Oh,
So
you guys didn't notice the different circles? Like, so the ones are squares, the 20s are
I didn't
stars.
realize that. No, but it's kind of
Yeah, so
irrelevant to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would remember that. Saying, oh, the star
and then the
must be a 20.
hexagon is the 5.
But I mean, they have the number on there, but it's the exact same color.
Yeah.
So you can't. I don't think I'd be able to remember the
No.
the shape in the middle being the denomination. I would look for the number. If that number was just a little bit lighter.
If I ever
To
get
really show
bored
the
for a
difference.
weekend straight, and I happen to have some white paint and a very fine paintbrush, I might go and touch those up with numbers on there. I just don't know that it'll ever happen because I'm lazy.
That's a lot of effort.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
I'd have to be. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to basically be very bored.
Yeah.
Well, plus the metal's really hard to paint on, so
Then not only that, you probably go downstairs and play a video game.
Well, more likely not. I'd probably find somebody to harass, play a board
Robert.
game with.
yeah, pretty much. I have to kick him out of the house. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to theme. So for the theme,
If you couldn't tell by the name, you're playing wizards
Well, you're
wizards.
recruiting
that
wizards.
are
Yes,
lizards.
you're recruiting wizards in their towers, and you're making sure they get familiars, and you're casting spells. And so, this compared to the other witch game we played the other day, this one actually made sense as far as wizardry goes, because you're getting resources to play spells, and you're spending mana to conjure familiars, and you're spending mana to conjure spells. And you're,
build towers.
And towers cost gold. That makes sense. You go into dungeons to collect gold and treasures. So that made a lot more sense than the last themed game. So I kind of appreciated that. The art on this, guys.
Gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely
guys.
beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
as far as theme is concerned for me, I'm giving it a 9. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was great. The artwork's fantastic. It made sense to me. I was down with it. What about you guys?
I'm not even sure why you didn't go 10 because I'm
a 10.
I can't see any reason not to give it a 10 with this.
I think everything fit mechanically for the theme, so that always ranks high for me. The art is gorgeous. It's just so good.
I'm just so afraid to give it a 10 because every time I do, I feel bad because you always are like, it's not 10 worthy. And I'm like...
Well, yeah, but still, I mean,
you were
it's
close
still
to a 10
opinion.
anyway.
And I think that for me, because the art is so good and thematically the mechanics fit, it's a 10.
Yeah, I could agree with that one. I know it's the theme. It's good. It's great. It makes sense. Everything aligns. I even love the different, like you have the conjurers and like the ingredients that go with conjuring, and then you have the alchemists, and
it's just different enough from the D&D tropes and stuff like that. So that's another thing going forward. It's not classic fantasy tropes.
No, it's
different enough. I think that lends it a little bit of more of a higher score too. So
yeah, I know, absolutely fantastic, and like we said, the art was superb.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now let's talk about rules. So I can tell you right now, this cheat sheet. That's what I'm talking about because it covers
helped
everything.
if I could read it.
Well, it's not my fault. You have bad outside. So
the rulebook itself is 20 pages long, but it's a small rulebook. It's
right,
not nearly the
it's
size
almost
of the
pamphlet
game.
size.
Yeah. So, and it's very sparsely populated. I mean, there's a lot of free
There's no
space.
people living in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of free space on there. So it's not. This took almost no time to read. It took even less time once I realized. It's basically Raccoon Tycoon again. I mean,
with
it's the
some
same
modifications.
thing. There are some modifications, but there's a lot of similarities between this and Raccoon Tycoon.
Which is okay.
Yeah, and it's fine because we like Raccoon Tycoon all right. It's just, I didn't realize it was going to be the same premise.
It's not,
maybe a slightly better version of Raccoon Tycoon.
Yes, better
Yeah.
version of Raccoon Tycoon.
which we liked. Raccoon Tycoon, fine.
Yeah.
No, it was good. My
Yeah.
dad loved it. My dad and mom both loved it.
So yeah, I mean, this one's a little, I guess. Well, I wouldn't have had some. No, I didn't really have that much take that. This one's got a little more take that.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
But yeah, as far as the rule book, it was very easy to read. So there were a few places in the rule book where things were phrased a little differently, and it made it a little confusing. That was the only confusion that I saw, where it was like, does it mean the same thing? Because they worded it differently when they said it this time than they did before. But it wasn't bad. There's the one thing
a little
on the
nitpicky.
yeah, the one thing on the board that caused some confusion during it was where it said you could play a spell if you did a certain action.
The confusion that Randy is referring to is that Miranda, I think, really, she was reading this, and it kind of contradicted. If you just read that, then what we read in the rules in our cheat sheet. So, yeah, a little confusion. I think we didn't have a problem getting past that. But
Yeah.
if all you were doing this, it does look different than the rest of the
Yeah,
rules.
so we had to just confirm that the
Yeah.
rules were what they were, but apart from that, there was no confusion.
Give it a score.
Given the fact that it was a quick read, it helped that we'd already played Raccoon Tycoon. I'm going to go ahead and give it probably an 8. I think it's a good rule book.
Okay, cool. And I really did appreciate the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet really worked well. However, make sure you look at the score sheet as well as this if you don't decide to listen to the rules or read them. Like me.
Yeah, because the scoring in this, there's certain things that are specifically important and other things that really don't contribute to scoring. But there are bonus cards that will key off of other items, which you just have to have those cards or else it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now let's talk about gameplay. So gameplay is it goes around the table, starting with the first player, and you get one action. Now, one of those actions, I'm going to use my little cheat sheet here. First one is gathering reagents. So this is very similar to Railroad Tycoon. Raccoon Tycoon is the fact that you have...
Or Railroad Tycoon.
I can't find my third card. Okay, so typically you have typically you start out with 3 cards. And so you're going to choose one to play. Now, it's kind of important to realize that there are 2 parts of this card. The red is the section that you get to choose from when you take resources. At the start, you get 3. Now, you may end up buying cards that modify that, but understand to begin with, it's 3.
Even if there's 4 or 5 pictured, you only get 3 of them.
You only get 3 of them, but you get to choose what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Again, unless you have spells in play that modify that rule. And then down here at the blue, that is the cost that goes up. So on your market,
value.
basically this is the demand, right? So the demand goes up and down based on this. It just goes up. And then we'll talk about when you sell what happens then. Now, some things can happen to the spells. So spells, like I said, you can get more resources on top. There's a spell that lets you flip. So you can decide which one you're actually going to take, whether you're going to take the bottom and then upgrade the top.
I didn't see that.
There's a couple of other spells that directly impact this card, but starting out, that's where you start. The second thing is converting reagents to mana. So basically, right here, I have quite a few tokens. Well, I have some extra mandrakes that I don't necessarily need. So I have 4 mandrakes. So I will go up into the market board, and right now the market's at a level 10, so I get to sell 4 times 10. That will give me 40 mana for the game. Then the market will go down 4. Basically, I supplied the 4 people who needed the mandrake, and so that means prices have gone down because there's fewer people that need that mandrake. Okay.
And both of those first 2 actions are directly the same actions as Raccoon Tycoon.
Yes, it is. And then now you get to, there's the option to recruit a wizard, which is very similar to the recruit the railroad in Raccoon Tycoon. So recruiting a wizard, so you basically, there's 2 wizards that you can see on top of the board. You can start the bidding. So I can say I can start with 5 coins, for example. And you keep going around the room until everyone has passed and you have the final winner for the bid. Now, if you were the person that initiated the bid and you didn't win that bid, you can do another action. And that could even be going for another wizard. So you may end up draining your opponent to actually get the one that you want if that's the case. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Then the 4th thing you can do is research a spell. So you have 4 spell cards that are shown on the board. that you can choose to pick from. You can spend the mana cost to basically research the spell so you can complete that spell later on.
And they all cost 5 always, all the spells.
Mm-hmm. And then you will place it face down in front of you, and then once you gain the necessary reagents and cast them, you can do that. Now, when you research a spell, if you already have the reagents, you can cast that spell at that time. If not, you have to wait for something else to trigger that.
And you pointed out earlier with the collecting of the reagents, you didn't point out that the spell, if you have any spells at the time when
Correct.
you collect those reagents, you can cast one spell from your set at
Correct.
that time.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that. All right, the next one is to create a tower. So you can spend either coins or resources that match the card, right? So at the very beginning, it will start out as 1 coin and 1 resource. And if you pay that, then you get the tower. The tower allows you to increase your hold capacity as well as allows a wizard to have a home. Now, when you create a wizard and tower set, they're worth 10 victory points if they're matching of the same icon. If not, they're 5 points. So it's still pretty good, but just keep in mind that you kind of want to match the same tower with the wizard of the icons. And those icons are kind of important throughout the game as far as victory points. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, the next thing that you're going to do is the last option is you can summon a familiar. Now, the familiars, they all cost mana. They range from 5 to 20 mana. You'll start off with the cheaper ones at first and go all the way up.
They actually go all the way up to 25.
Oh, I
For
missed
3
that one.
players, they go up to 20, but with more players, you would
Okay.
include the 25s.
All right, so when you purchase a familiar, you'll notice that it will have an icon, so that may impact some of your stuff, but it doesn't actually really include in your set collection at the end of the game unless you have other spells that allow that to occur. So just kind of keep that in mind. But then you do have 4 actions you can choose when you buy the familiar. One of those is new research. So basically you get to wipe the spell board, place 4 new up, and you get that spell for free, okay?
And then if you have the resources, you can cast it.
Correct. And then the next one is collect a certain number of a resource that pertains to this particular kind of spell, a familiar, and then you get to cast as many spells as you want. So if you have a buildup of spells, you have a buildup of resources, you can do that and get 3 or 4 of those spells out of your way and done. Then you could enter the dungeon, okay? And we're going to talk about the enter the dungeon once I talk about this other one. And then the last action is 1 gold per type. So remember when I talked about how those icons are important? So if you have a number of a particular icon, that's how many victory points you got.
And that can be across wizards, towers, it can be across
Spells.
familiars,
So
any
of that icon that you have. And that's where I said those icon collections are kind of important throughout the game. So let's go back to the dungeon. So the dungeon, if you choose to do that, is pretty... so basically, you can defeat 1 monster, but the second one will kill you. And if that second monster comes and gets you, you lose everything in that dungeon because you pass out and someone drags you to safety, okay?
So it's a press your luck element.
So it's a press your luck. So like the first card I drew was an orc, so I've already had ogre. So that tells me, okay, so I can take the risk and take another one because I have nothing to lose. Oh, look, now I have a treasure that gives me 2 gold. Now I have to choose, right? Because I already have 1 monster that's after me. Do I want to risk losing my 2 gold? In this case, I do because I'm not really winning. Oh, look, I got another one. All right, well, maybe 3 gold. Maybe that's enough for me to walk away. And so I'm going to say, nope, I'm good. Thank you. And so I'm going to get 3 gold. All of these cards get shuffled back into the deck.
Except for
the
gold and the...
Not
Well, the gold, the treasure.
treasure
Oh,
items.
dude, I should have kept going.
Yeah.
So the items, which
Here's some. There's 5 of them
So
right here.
there's like weapons.
You had
there's
them
like
all.
armor.
I have
Okay.
5 of them.
all right. So these are like this one's a dagger, and there's some emeralds and things like that.
They
so
all count towards in-game score.
yes.
So,
So
yeah.
the one with the most gets 10 points. The one with second most gets 5. So those stay in your player
Yeah,
area.
but also it makes the dungeon more hazardous because
You're taking cards out of it.
out. They also have 2 variant. Well, they have 2 spells that will add traps in that are automatically 2 hits. So if you get one of those traps, you just lose outright. And there's also a variant where you can add every time somebody goes in the dungeon, add a monster to the deck.
Oh wow!
And that basically makes the dungeon tougher.
And there's the spell cards that Miranda mentioned earlier. All change the rules, so they are game breaking.
Well,
cards.
some are end of game victory points.
Well, some of them allow you to avoid damage from the. You excelled at that. I mean, there's like 3 monster types. You were immune to 2 of them.
Right.
And
well, what's
Rainy
funny
was
is I didn't go into the dungeon after getting those at all.
Well, I had immunity to 1, which gave me a gold if I got them, and then I had an extra hit. So I went into the dungeon because I could take 2 hits or 2 hits, and not 3 hits total before I lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had much better opportunity in the dungeon than you guys.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, and kind of keep in mind though. So if you've created a wizard and tower combo, any spells that you play in that faction get you 5 victory points. And so, like for me, I played all across the board, but I think that ended up costing me quite a bit because I had 4 spells that didn't get me any points. That's 20 points. That probably, I don't know.
If I would have had one combination of the green, which is the druidry, I would have got like 30 more points because I had so many spells from that faction, but I didn't have the. The combo.
I did a really good job of lining up my spells and everything. Familiars, everything is with being the 2 different categories I was going for.
Now, one thing I did forget to mention about the wizards is that if you look at the wizards, right, you have the icon and you have the resource. When you play one of your resource cards, you get all the resources on your different wizards, okay? So kind of keep that in mind.
As a bonus.
As a bonus.
Of the 3 that
on top of the 3 that you choose.
And then all you have to do is balance because you're only allowed so many of those resources at the end of your turn.
Right. So that's another key component is that you are limited to 10 resources unless you modify that by getting tower cards or by getting spell cards that allow you to increase your carrying capacity. So I thought that was an interesting way to kind of keep it controlled. So that's what
I thought the spell one was super powerful. I mean, to jump you from 10
to 20.
To 20.
Yeah, I mean, I got one of those early in the game.
The towers just add 1 spot.
I never had to worry about holding
I still
resources.
did. I had 24 I could hold, and I still maxed out. I had to give up 4 resources.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do some of that too. I had to be very cautious. At the end, I had like 15 or 16 carry, and I was still always hitting that cap. So that, it's kind of a bummer a little bit. But that was one of my biggest barriers when I was playing this game. But it was, it's one of those good barriers. You're trying to figure it out and manage that piece.
Now, within the cards, the spell cards, there are a lot of attack cards. The nice thing about this game is they put a star on all those cards. So if you don't like the take that elements in a game, you can remove them from this game. And I really appreciate that. That was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
Because there are some brutal attack cards in there that can totally change the game. I had a card that disintegrated any card of another player. And it was like, well, you could just totally wipe out somebody's scoring opportunity for a category by taking out their wizard or their tower so they don't get a pair, and then all their spells associated with it are just gone. And that would have been brutal.
And then here's the thing, though. That might have worked better for, like, my strategy where I spread out. Like, people couldn't, you could take a card, but how much was that really going to hurt me? 10, 20 points max. Versus, like, you, if somehow we had taken both of your, like, graveyard wizards, like, you would have been decimated, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you wanted to play this meanly...
And there's shield cards, too, that kind of mitigate that. But there's a ton of spells.
Yeah.
So it's like, it could be someone gets a nasty card and there's no way to stop it.
And you could have a bunch of people pile on one person, which that could get nasty.
Yeah, I think this has the opportunity to be nasty, so depending on your player. But you're right. They did really good. They started at the bottom. That's not the way you want to play. Take all them suckers out and call it a day. So I thought that was helpful.
Yeah.
I really did. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. This one was a lot of fun. I liked Railroad Tycoon or Raccoon Tycoon. I think this one's better. I really do. I liked the theme better, and I liked the spell mechanism to it as well. Better as well. So for me, this ranks up pretty high. What did you guys think?
Well, I liked this one better too, but I liked it better because I felt like in Raccoon Tycoon, the buildings were underpowered. The buildings are kind of replaced with the spells in this, and I remember when we played Raccoon Tycoon, I built up my engine with all those buildings, and it wasn't worth any points in the end. There was nothing I got for it. This one, the spells still don't give you points necessarily, but they can if you match the category. So that I thought was a huge improvement from Raccoon Tycoon. I like the dungeon element where you go in and press your luck, because I think that adds a whole nother dimension to the game, and that was not in Raccoon Tycoon. So,
Correct.
So I think they took the best parts of Raccoon Tycoon and added to it.
I agree.
So I think this one is a stronger game.
What would you score?
I am probably going to give this an 8.5.
I think I'm an 8.5 as well, and the reason why I like it so much is it's a great game. It's fun. It's easy to play. I like all that. I think what's interesting, it's like Raccoon Tycoon. It's most games that like take this kind of theme where you got animals and you got this kind of fantasy theme that's not the traditional fantasy, but it's still fantasy. That it's either really dark and serious or it's really silly, especially with animals. It's usually silly. Mm-hmm. This isn't silly at all.
No.
It's like a real traditional fantasy themed board game with anima for however you pronounce that, but with animals. But it's serious, and I like that. It's just different. It's not a silly game at all. And it's good. The artwork's gorgeous and the gameplay's simple. So
yeah, I mean the artwork, guys, is fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. If you said, "Hey, let's put this on your walls," this would fit Walter's room.
Yeah.
Amazingly. Like I would love to get some of the artwork and like from some of these cards and be able to put it in Walter's room. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's great.
Yeah. So I'm an 8.5 too. It's a really good, solid game.
Yep, I agree. I'm with you at an 8.5. I think this is really good, really solid. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to play it again. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. Catch you guys later. Bye.
There were a few places where it was worded oddly, where usually when you do that, it means you're going to yawn or cough or sneeze or...
No.
Okay, so you just did it to interrupt me.
No, I just did it.
Oh, okay.
There was no thought behind it.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I hate it when they do stuff under the table.
When you
because they're doing stuff under the table.
That's our universal signal.
It embarrasses me
to
because I'm not part of that. And so it's like, go to another room and do that stuff.
Would you
No.
It's just it can't use my universal signal for pausing to continue on. It's like, oh, I don't have any purpose. I'm just doing it. So there were some places in the rulebook that the phrasing was just kind of a little weird. Like they would use it one way someplace, and then another time they would phrase it differently. So you thought maybe they're applying.
Sorry.
Now there is no pause. Now there's no warning at all. It's just chew. You wait. You burned your only pause. Is that it? I can't use it. I burned my pause. No timeouts allowed.
I'm sorry.
Bro.
Oh, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Tap his leg.
It kind of lays out some options down here when was casting a spell, and it was a little different than the rules and the cheat sheet kind of tells you.
All right, can you try that again, Rob?
Hold on. Sorry, I had to yawn. Okay.
This is the first time it wasn't on to me. You did that though.
Yeah, it's just yawning at me. Like, God, it's so boring.
That's what she does to me every time we do it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No.
That's horrible, Randy.
Are you done yet?